Good morning. Good evening, Dennis. Dennis, if you care to answer, where are you zooming in from?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Chattanooga, how wonderful, Dennis. And here's Ashley from, I believe, in Colorado.
Wyoming, but hello.
Wyoming, hello. All
Nice.
right. And Aaron is also in Tennessee, I think.
No, I'm not in Tennessee.
Where are you? North Carolina?
No, I'm in Georgia.
Oh, you're in Georgia now. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Hate to misplace people.
No problem.
Wyoming. How wonderful, Wyoming. What a beautiful place Wyoming is.
You know, it is beautiful. It's been back and forth between spring and back to a little bit of winter. We're trying to decide. May is always like that.
Yeah, I have a friend who lives in Republic, Washington, and he says, summer happens on July 4th.
Well, it's true. I feel like we can still get frosts into June, late June sometimes, which is really interesting for your garden season.
Yes. Good evening, Keith. Hello, Haima.
Good evening, everybody.
So we've got a few minutes left before we start at 7:59 according to this clock. We'll wait until 8:02 before we begin the formalities. There's Justine.
Namaste, Brother Shankara.
Namaste. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
And there's Brahmadas.
Hello, Brother Shankara.
Hello, namaste, dear. Good to see you.
Namaste. Good to see you too.
Brother Shankar, namaste. Hari Om.
Hello, Naveen. Swayam.
Om.
Namaste.
Hari Om.
Namaste.
Namaste.
I don't.
Hello, Akash.
Hello, brother. How are you?
Oh, fine. Namaste.
Namaste.
Hmm.
I see you got yourself a haircut. The last time,
No beard trim so far, not the
not the
hair.
hair.
I haven't taken the clippers to the hair. It was easy enough to do the beard. I had been trimming the beard for years, but there just seems to be a little hesitancy about taking the clippers to the hair. I'll get it done. But all right. It is 8:02, and so we will begin. Oh. Oh. Om Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all suffering and joyous beings everywhere. Before we begin, just this little bit of a preamble. Spiritual practice, as Swami Brahmananda said, there is no end to it. Light, more light, he said, is there no end to it? And the reason he said this, and of course it's been said in other ways, in other places, but what is meant is the more you increase your spiritual practice, the more you deepen your spiritual practice, the more will be revealed, the more will open up to you, the more joy, the more beauty, because we seek on the bright side. It isn't as if you don't encounter and don't acknowledge the dark side. We live in duality, but we seek the bright side, and the bright side is the predominant side. This is very, very adamantly pointed out by Swami Vivekananda in his London lectures, that the bright side is the predominant side. And if you read the book, Love Poems from God, which is testimony of the saints, that is exactly what you find. You find their hearts are joyous and bright with thee. And they write so beautifully of their knowledge and their experience. So this is just a way of noting that there's no should or must about this. Spiritual life is an invitation to greater and greater and greater revelation, greater and greater joy, greater and greater experience, deeper and greater. So with that, we'll take up where we left off in the Gita. And the reason I said what I said, just this little preamble, is because Krishna is about to talk about a human being's will. What is it that we can will? What is a man's will, and how shall he use it? Let him put forth its power to uncover the Atman, not hide the Atman. Man's will is the only friend of the Atman. His will is also the Atman's enemy. For when a man is self-controlled, his will is the Atman's friend. But the will of an uncontrolled man is hostile to the Atman, like an enemy. Why is that? What does he mean by that? We can see the friend business, but why is it like an enemy? Because the promptings of the Atman, which come to us through the buddhi, which we can think of us as our conscience, our discriminative power, they nudge us, they encourage us toward greater self-realization, greater purity, all of the things that, greater mercy, kindness, and so on. The self-willed person, the selfish person, the self-centered person, all of those attributes, all of those tendencies, they tend to suppress them. So that's what he means. But the will of an uncontrolled man is hostile to the Atman, like an Atman. That serene one, absorbed in the Atman, masters his will. He knows no disquiet in heat or in cold, in pain or in pleasure, in honor, dishonor. In other words, in all of the dualities of life. Absorbed in the Atman, masters his will. He knows no disquiet in heat or in cold, in pain or in pleasure, in honor or dishonor. For when a man's heart has reached fulfillment through knowledge and personal experience of the truth of Brahman, he is never again moved by the things of the senses. Again, this is one of these great promises that Krishna makes. When the mirror of the heart has been wiped clean, which then allows us to reach fulfillment through knowledge and personal experience of the truth of Brahman, that is so much more powerful, so much more compelling. He is never again moved by the things of the senses. Now there's a period, as is beautifully described by Adi Shankaracharya in the last couple of chapters of the Vivekachudamani, the crest jewel of discrimination. There is a period where there's both sense and both sensations. We haven't become fully fulfilled through personal experience and knowledge of the truth of Brahman. So it isn't like it happens instanter, like a magic bullet. To this person, he is never moved by the things of the senses. Earth, stone, and gold, in other words, mud, granite, and gold, seem all alike to one who has mastered his senses. Such a yogi is said to have achieved union with Brahman. The phrase is, the knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. He who regards with an eye that is equal friends and comrades, the foe and the kinsman, friends and comrades, the foe and the kinsman, the vile, the wicked, the men who judge him, and those who belong to neither faction, he is the greatest. How can we get to that state? When we understand that we are that. We are all of that. This is what I meant by when I was talking about our experience of the bright side is also accompanied by experience of the dark side as we progress. We become aware that potentially we're capable of any act. It's St. Francis of Assisi says, no love and compassion can shine forth from your eyes and comfort others until you are truly convinced of that. So looking with equanimity simply means that there has been complete recognition of the totality of your own dualistic being, which is, after all, a reflection of Ishvara, of Ishwari. And it says in the Chandi about the Divine Mother, Mother, you are the great Devi, the great goddess, as also the great Asuri, the great demoness. So within us is reflected that as well. But that's why I said in the preamble that if we pursue spiritual practices which are devoted to the bright side, the other becomes inconsequential to us. By that I mean we can look on it with equanimity, and as Christ said in his shortest teaching, be passers-by. It doesn't mean we're not compassionate toward the suffering. It doesn't mean that we're not involved in the world and giving of ourselves, just the opposite. But you don't do it out of some self-centered motive. You do it simply out of recognition of the divine presence wherever you look. The yogi, now, this isn't a series of instructions that are meant for people who are pursuing Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga. So this is not meant for householders. Sri Ramakrishna said, go find opportunities to spend a day in solitude, 3 days if you can, even a week if you can. But this is not musts and shoulds here. The yogi, it says should, but it's the yogi following that path, the Raja Yoga path. The yogi should retire into a solitary place and live alone. He must exercise control over his mind and body. Pranayama, pratyahara. He must free himself from the hopes and possessions of this world. Dharana. He should meditate on the Atman unceasingly, dhyana. So you can see the mirror of the instructions in Patanjali here, very briefly summarized. Gaining control of the senses, of the mind, and of the body, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, and then give up all hopes and possessions of the world, concentrate, in other words, on the spiritual aspects that are the focus of the yogi's attention. That's dharana, concentration. He should meditate on the Atman unceasingly. Dhyana. And then some very, if you ever want to go on a vision quest or do something of the kind, this is you'll want to dig out these instructions from the Gita and follow them. The place where he sits should be firm, neither too high nor too low, and situated in a clean spot. He must first cover it with sacred grass, then with a deerskin, then lay a cloth over these. Swami Prabhavananda would say, just a nice clean spot, a simple sheet and a blanket will do. You don't have to. These are very traditional ways. And if you can do them, well, wonderfully. As he sits there, he has to hold the senses and imagination in check. This is pratyahara. As he sits there, he has to hold the senses and imagination in check and keep his mind concentrated upon its object, dharana. If he practices meditation in this manner, his heart will become pure. So contemplation, concentration segues into meditation, and there becomes purity of heart. It's simply because the heart is no longer outreaching for anything other than what is in that exact moment. His posture will be motionless, with the body, head and neck held erect, and the vision indrawn as if gazing at the tip of the nose. Sri Ramakrishna and his followers say, bring the attention further down to the heart, rather than gazing at the tip of the nose. That if you're practicing breath attention meditation, that you use the tip of the nose. But if you're practicing mantra meditation or image meditation, you do that in his heart, in the heart. He must not look about him. Well, yeah. If you're indrawn, you're not going to be looking about you. But looking about you, there's a subtle aspect to this. You must not be looking about you internally either. Following this thought, this image, this train of memory. So looking about yourself, looking about, is both an internal as well as external activity. So, he sums up, so with his heart serene and fearless, firm in the vow of renunciation, holding the mind from its restless roaming, now let him struggle to reach my oneness, ever absorbed, his eyes on me always, his prize, his purpose. And that is an inward search, that is an inward struggle. Finding Krishna within. What does Swami Prabhavananda say in his first instruction for meditation? The chosen ideal, that aspect of the divine, which is the focus of your spiritual quest and your spiritual practice. The chosen ideal is you yourself. No different. Learn to feel that living presence. So that's what he means. Now let him struggle to reach my oneness, ever absorbed, his eyes on me always, his prize, his purpose. If a yogi has perfect control over his mind and struggles continually in this way to unite himself with Brahman, he will come at last to the crowning peace of nirvana, the peace that is in me. And again, this is one of those great promises that Krishna makes, that the great teachers all make. Keep on keeping on, you will find your way to me. And though the requirements seem very steep, if a yogi has perfect control over his mind, well, you don't gain perfect control over your mind all at once, but you do gain more and more control of your mind as you do your spiritual practice, and struggles continuously in this way to unite himself with Brahman. In other words, moving toward that perfection. He will come at last to the crowning peace of nirvana, the peace that is in me. Yoga is not for the person who overeats or for the person who fasts excessively. Now, this is the same preaching of the middle way that we find in the Buddha. Yoga is not for the person who overeats or for the person who fasts excessively. It is not for the person who sleeps too much or for the keeper of exaggerated vigils. What's an exaggerated vigil? An exaggerated vigil for a householder would be depriving yourself of the necessary sleep to do what you need to do. For a monk or a yogi practicing Raja Yoga, it might have a different definition. But what it means for the householder is you need to get enough sleep so that you can do your work easily and successfully. Let a person be moderate in eating and in recreation, moderately active, moderate in sleep and in wakefulness. He will find that yoga takes away all his unhappiness. And interestingly, it takes away that terrible feeling of fatigue and ennui that results in boredom. It doesn't mean you never get tired, but that unhappiness, a lot of us think about unhappiness. I just feel so fatigued. I'm just so, I need some diversion. Yoga takes away that. It really does take away that. When can a man be said to have achieved union with Brahman? When his mind is under perfect control and freed from all desires, so that he becomes absorbed in the Atman and nothing else. The light of a lamp does not flicker in a windless place. That is the simile which describes a yogi of one-pointed mind who meditates upon the Atman. So much glory is revealed long before you achieve this particular state, this lamp not flickering in a windless place. That's why I said what I said in the preamble. It is the joy, the feeling of relief and the decrease of stress and so on, all increases as you go along. When, through the practice of yoga, the mind ceases its restless movements and becomes still, he realizes the Atman. It is self-revealing. We do the work to still the mind, and it's like an artesian fountain that you've uncovered. There it is. It satisfies him entirely. As Christ said, you drink from this water, you will never thirst again. It satisfies him entirely. Then he knows that infinite happiness. What kind of words are those? Infinite happiness. That's why I quoted Brahmananda in the beginning. Light, no more light. There's no end to it. Then he knows that infinite happiness, which can be realized by the purified heart, but is beyond the grasp of the senses. Why is it beyond the grasp of the senses? Because the senses are outreaching. And there is no fulfillment there. There's momentary fulfillment. There's momentary joy. And that's because, as Swami Prabhavananda pointed out, what's happened is the restless mind has become stilled for a moment. And so some joy bursts through, that artesian spring trickles out. But there's nothing that the senses can grasp. that will be truly satisfying. And he said, the person who achieves this state stands firm in this realization. Because of it, he can never again wander from the inmost truth of his being. Now that he holds it, he knows the treasure above all others. Faith so certain shall never be shaken by the heaviest sorrow. To achieve this certainty is to know the real meaning of the word yoga, which of course means both union and detachment. It is the breaking of contact with pain, one of the most famous sayings of the Gita, that yoga breaks contact with pain. You have to experience it before you know what this means. But it's literally true and spiritually true. You must practice this yoga resolutely without losing heart. Renounce all your desires forever. They spring from willfulness, self-centeredness. Use your discrimination. Listen to the voice of the buddhi, to that inner voice. You know, as children, we're taught to ignore our conscience. We're taught to ignore the buddhi. Because we don't get what we want if we listen to the buddhi. Use your discrimination to restrain the whole pack of the scattering senses. Patiently, little by little, a man must free himself from all mental distractions. Now notice, Krishna has been setting this very high bar, saying this is the great goal, this is the end. And then he finally admits, I mean, it's almost a little comical how after all of that, he says, patiently, little by little, a man must free himself from all mental distractions with the aid of the intelligent will. The intelligent will is the combination of your mind listening to the buddhi. He must fix his mind upon the Atman. What does it mean to fix your mind on the Atman? To understand what the Atman is as defined by Krishna and otherwise. And keep your attention. This is who I am. This is what is. Everything else is something else. It's either the glory of God if you're a bhakta, or it's a distraction, or if you're a jnani, or it is something to be meditated upon if you're a yogi and seen for what it truly is. He must fix his mind upon the Atman and never think of anything else. How can you not think of anything else? Because you come to see everything as Brahman, as the Atman. That's how you do this. No matter where the restless and unquiet mind wanders, it must be drawn back and made to submit to the Atman only. Now, this is the instruction for someone who has learned what the Atman is, and yet is not in that final state of union with Atman. And so Krishna is being stern and saying, must be drawn back and made to submit to the Atman only. Well, for all of us, that is a goal devoutly to be reached, to be wished and reached. But we can understand why we might want to do it when Krishna says, utterly quiet, made clean of passion, the mind of the yogi knows that Brahman, his bliss is the highest. Released from evil, his mind is constant in contemplation. The way is easy. Brahman has touched him. That bliss is boundless. His heart is with Brahman. His eye in all things sees only Brahman, equally present, knows his own Atman in every creature and all creation within that Atman. The yogi sees me, the Atman, Brahman. The yogi sees me in all things and all things within me. He never loses sight of me, nor I of him. It's very interesting that from a completely different tradition, completely different time, Meister Eckhart, the great Catholic saint, said, the eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me. He never loses sight of me, nor I of him. He is established in union with me and worships me devoutly in all beings. That yogi abides in me, no matter what his mode of life. And this is Krishna saying to the householder, don't think this doesn't apply to you. And he'll explain in the next chapter why, if you are resolute and determined and work at this, he gets right behind it and makes it work for you. Now we've covered a lot of ground. It's a little after 8:30. This is probably a good place to stop and see if there are any questions or comments. And please do be forthcoming. This is where we do this together. This is where we study the art of spirituality together. Share with the rest of us. We've all gathered together to do this together. Share with us what's on your mind, your comments, your questions, just your thoughts about all of this. I mean, this is about as lofty as it gets. So what has this stirred in you? Please.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Swayam.
When Swami says that the chosen ideal is you yourself,
No different.
no different, does that mean that you're trying to elevate yourself or align yourself with the chosen ideal?
No, it means that this chosen ideal is you yourself, no different from the very beginning of time. It is only your lack of ability to see it, which is called Maya or ignorance, that stands in the way. Maya or ignorance says, look outward, look out to the things of the senses. You'll find satisfaction and happiness there. That's what Maya says. And when Sri Ramakrishna says, Mother says to us with a wink of her eye, he calls it a sign of her eye. Mother says to us with a sign of her eye, go enjoy the world. So the other aspect of our nature wants to distract us from the truth. But no, it is not that you have to become something. You have to discover that it's already there. That's why Vivekananda said, each soul is potentially divine. Now, that doesn't mean potentially in the sense of maybe and maybe not. It means the potential is there, like electricity in a battery. I use this metaphor. If you don't know what a battery is, a car battery, if it's just sitting there and you don't know what that is, you wouldn't know that there's a great deal of energy stored there. It's potential energy until you connect something to it. Then it becomes dynamic energy. You connect something to both poles and you can use it to start a car or run a fan or whatever it is that you might want to do with it. The same thing is true of you. That artesian spring of your true spiritual nature, your true original nature, is there. It has only to be uncovered. And that's why Swami doesn't say, become that living presence. No. The chosen ideal is you yourself, no different. Learn to feel that living presence. It's there already. And as the heart center opens through your spiritual practice, you feel it. You feel it. You feel it not just in your heart, but in your whole body. Calmness, serenity, contentment. So that is Swami Prabhavananda's first instruction for meditation. The chosen ideal is you yourself, no different. Learn to feel that living presence. Second instruction, patience. Third instruction, perseverance. We must be patient with ourselves and with the world. And we must persevere. We must be undauntable. Nothing can stop us from keeping on, keeping on. That doesn't mean we won't miss a day. That doesn't mean we won't fall down and have to get up again. All of that. But we persevere. We don't allow ourselves to be sidetracked, to be drawn away from it. The fourth instruction, and it's the last one because it's so potent, is expectation. You have no idea. Each of us has no idea how close we are to realization. As Swami P used to say, you don't know it, but you're just a hair's breadth away. Very good question, Swami. No, it's not something you have to earn. It's not something you have to become. It's something you have to uncover, reveal.
Thank you, Rich.
So, Brother Shankara, when we talk of chosen ideal for meditation, is it from the, like we go through all the here, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Gyan Yoga, and Raj Yoga here.
Yes.
Is this chosen ideal in meditation is coming from Bhakti Yoga?
It is the heart of the mantra that your guru gave you. It is that presence that is at the heart of the mantra that your guru gave you. Now, if there's something unsatisfactory about that for you, then you need to talk about it with your teacher, with your guru. But the thing that we come to understand as we do our spiritual practices centered on that being is that that being is all that there is of deity and divinity. There is no other. They're just different names and forms.
So the confusion I have when we go through the Gyan Yoga, we are talking Atman. And trying
No, when
to,
we talk Gyan Yoga, we're talking Brahman.
yeah,
When
Brahman.
we talk Raja Yoga, we're talking Atman, and to an extent Karma Yoga. But it's Brahman and
Right.
Jnana Yoga.
Brahman, and then Atman is the individual, is part of the Brahman.
Yes, the manifest, that which we can somehow realize here and now. Brahman is beyond all knowledge.
Right.
So of course there's confusion, Naveen. Of course there's confusion, and nothing to feel bad about.
No, I'm not bad about. My thing is, when we are having this very wide spectrum of trying to learn from all different yogas and everything, if probably it's easier for one person, okay, this is what it is, and stick with it and don't worry about the other part. But here when we are, so I'm just trying to say, okay, if I'm going following Gyan Yoga or the Raj Yoga, it is more of where I'm concerned with Atman and Brahman, not a particular deity.
As pleases yourself. As Vivekananda said, through work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, one or more or all of these.
Yeah.
So some stick, as you say, to just one. Others, I'm an example, primarily a bhakta, karmi, but it doesn't mean I don't learn from the other yogas. How to meditate, you learn through Raja Yoga, through studying Raja Yoga. How to really intensify your meditation. From Jnana Yoga or Advaita,
Right.
we learn discrimination, vairagya and viveka and vairagya, discrimination and renunciation, and the insistence on truth that comes when we become convinced of the truth, so that we don't allow anything else to intrude as lead us from thy lesser truth to thy highest truth. And then when I have heard and believe in the highest truth, I don't allow anything to compromise that. So this we learn from Gyan Yoga, from Advaita. So there's something to be learned from all of them.
Yes.
And the reason we present all four serially here like this is because people do have different temperaments, and they slowly see, oh yes, this is where I belong. This is I'm really a karmi. You know, I'm an active person, and that my way of life, I have to learn that I am not the doer. I am not the gunas are the doer. And all the lessons of karma yoga, and become selfless thereby. There are devotees here who pursue that path. It's a challenge. This is all a challenge. But very good question. I mean, where to place the emphasis? Ultimately, your mind becomes your own guru. But in the beginning, you have teachers. And Swami Sarvadevananda is a great resource. And any questions you have, I mean, here is a thimbleful, there is an ocean. Okay? So be sure and ask Sarvadevananda these questions also.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anybody else before we go on? All right. So the last sentence was, that yogi abides in me, no matter what his mode of life. From king to street sweeper, to yogi in the forest, to football player on the soccer pitch, soccer field. Who burns with the bliss and suffers the sorrow. Now this is a definition of what happens when you attain this state. Who burns with the bliss and suffers the sorrow of every creature within his own heart, making his own bliss and each sorrow, making his own each bliss and each sorrow. Who burns with the bliss and suffers the sorrow of every creature within his own heart, making his own each bliss and each sorrow. Him I hold highest of all the yogis. How can this be? Because you no longer identify yourself as a limited being. You understand the meaning of thou art that, and you feel it in every being that you encounter. And so this, when you have achieved this state, Sri Krishna says, him I count the highest of all the yogis. Now, blessedly, in steps Krishna, in steps Arjuna. You know, our spokesperson, the every person, Arjuna. Krishna, you describe this yoga as a life of union with Brahman, but I do not see how this can be permanent. The mind is so very restless. Restless man's mind is so strongly shaken in the grip of the senses, gross and grown hard with stubborn desire for all that is worldly. How shall he tame it? Truly, I think the wind is no wilder. Now this is, doesn't that sound familiar to us? And isn't Arjuna kind of eloquent on our behalf? Restless man's mind is so strongly shaken in the grip of the senses, gross and grown hard with stubborn desire for what is worldly. How shall he tame it? Truly, I think the wind is no wilder. Sri Krishna. Yes, Arjuna, the mind is restless, no doubt, and hard to subdue, but it can be brought under control by constant practice and by the exercise of dispassion. what is dispassion? Not allowing ourselves to be excited by the things of the world. Not allowing ourselves to become fruitlessly angry with things that we can't do anything about. It doesn't mean we don't have righteous anger that that powers us to do something about the things we can do something about. Right now, 17% of the children in this nation are going to bed hungry. We can do something about that. For those of us who live here in Atlanta, we can give money and food to the Atlanta Community Food Bank. So it isn't as if we don't react with righteous indignation toward the injustice of the world. But we don't get carried away by it, and we don't get angry and allow ourselves to be carried away by things that we can't do anything about. There's great suffering all over the world. My God, if you just look at what's going on in Yemen, it'll tear your heart out of your chest. But there's nothing we can do about it. So you exercise dispassion. You use your energy where it can do some good. But it can be brought under control by constant practice and by the exercise of dispassion. Certainly, if a man has no control over his ego, he will find this yoga difficult to master. That's what I meant about allowing yourself to become angry about things you can't do anything about. That just makes you feel good about being angry. It's an ego-centered thing. Makes you feel powerful. Anger makes you feel powerful. Lust can make you feel powerful. If a man has no control over his ego, he will find this yoga difficult to master. But a self-controlled man can master it if he struggles hard and uses the right means. And the Krishna described the means earlier. Arjuna, bless his heart, comes right back. Suppose a man has faith, but does not struggle hard enough. His mind wanders away from the practice of yoga, and he fails to reach perfection. What will become of him then? When a man goes astray from the path to Brahman, he has missed both lives, the worldly and the spiritual. He has no support anywhere. Is he not lost as a broken cloud is lost in the sky? This is the doubt that troubles me, Krishna. And only you can altogether remove it from my mind. Let me hear your answer. Arjuna is so sincere, so sweet, voicing for us the fear of what will happen, the doubt about what will happen if we start down this path and we don't try hard enough. And listen to Krishna's absolutely stunning answer. And this is one of the few places in the Gita where he addresses Arjuna in this way as his son. Know, my son, that man is not lost either in this world or the next. No one who seeks Brahman ever comes to an evil end. No one who seeks Brahman ever comes to an evil end. This promise is repeated in the Chandi as well. If you seek refuge in me, you not only find it, the mother says this, if you seek refuge in me, you not only find it, you become a refuge of others. No one who seeks Brahman ever comes to an evil end. Even if a man falls away from the practice of yoga, he will still win the heaven of the doers of good deeds and dwell there many long years. After that, he will be reborn into the home of he will be reborn into the home of pure and prosperous parents. He may even be born into the family of yogis. He may even be born into a family of illumined yogis. But such a birth in this world is more difficult to obtain. Well, if we study the lives of the saints, we find that it does happen. After having been reborn into this good situation, he will then regain that spiritual discernment which he acquired in his former body, and so will strive harder than ever for perfection. Because of his practices in the previous life, he will be driven onward toward union with Brahman, even in spite of himself. Swami Prabhavananda said, your very bones will make you do it. He will be driven on toward union with Brahman, even in spite of himself, because of the momentum that's been created. For a man who has once asked the way to Brahman goes further than any more. For the man who has once asked the way to Brahman goes further than any mere fulfiller of the Vedic rituals. By struggling hard and cleansing himself of all impurities, that yogi will move gradually toward perfection through many births and reach the highest goal at last. And what Swami Prabhavananda told us, and I mean triple underlined it, and Swami Swahananda said the same thing. This can be your last birth. Why? Because of Sri Ramakrishna. No, I'm not saying you must believe this. I'm not saying you have to adopt Sri Ramakrishna as your chosen ideal. I'm not saying any of this. But here's what Swami Vivekananda wrote about Sri Ramakrishna, and whether you need to take many births or whether this birth will be enough. First, he starts the evening hymn, Breaker of This World's Chain. And then further along, he says, addressing Sri Ramakrishna, how great was your sacrifice, freely choosing your birth in this prison, our iron age, to unchain us and set us free. So if that is your wish, then apply yourself. And as I said, if you focus your attention on Sri Ramakrishna, what happens is you find that every other spiritual deity, being, form, image is within him. As it says in a prayer to Sri Ramakrishna, about Sri Ramakrishna, he is of the form of all gods and goddesses and incarnations. And so you may find that your early attraction to, as a child, to Rama, or to Krishna, or to Shiva, or whatever, whoever, or to Jesus. It may flower in your heart. It may just blossom in your heart. And you see, oh, they are not different. They are not different. So it doesn't have to be through many births. This is the end of an age, if we are to believe Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Vivekananda, Raja Maharaj. This is the end of an age. If we do not wish to be reborn into the next age, as Jesus said, ask and ye shall receive. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. If you ask your Father for a loaf of bread, will he give you a stone? If you ask for a fish, will he give you a serpent? It's a little after 9. Are there any questions or comments?
Go ahead.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Swam.
so when it says here, who burns with the bliss and suffers the sorrow of every creature within his own heart, making his own each bliss and each sorrow, him I hold highest of all the yogis. But isn't Brahman supposed to be Sachidanand? So it's existence, consciousness, bliss. So how does sorrow come into this?
Do you not experience sorrow?
Mhm.
Are you not the divine being? Do you not experience joy, bliss? Are you not the divine being? You are Satchidananda Brahman, yes, but you are also Brahman with attributes. You are also Shakti. So when you attain a certain state of heart and mind, you begin to see the joy and bliss of your reality everywhere. And you also see the sorrow and the pain that you experience everywhere. When you're, as Christ said, when the two become one, then your light shines purely, and it shines on everything. And by that he means the duality. When the duality becomes unity, when you see that you are that, and furthermore, all else is that as well, then there's no question about your sharing in their joy and in their sorrow. But this again is not something that can be asserted. You know, you can take a stand for it. You can say, I have shraddha, I have belief, faith that this is true. I'm going to be courageously seeking it before you know it. But there's no sense pretending that you actually see it before you actually see it. But it allows you then to act with compassion and dispassion to relieve the sorrow and suffering that is within your power to relieve. And it allows you to share with complete lack of envy, with complete lack of jealousy. in the joy, the bliss, the success of others. And this is where it's actually harder for us to not be a little jealous when we see a Yogatmananda and how effortlessly he moves through the world. I mean, it's hard not to think, oh, how wonderful it must be to be like that. And that little tinge of jealousy. Does it sound like I'm telling you something I know? Yes. So we discover, we uncover Satchidananda Brahman is a matter of realization. It's not a matter of speech or mind. It's not a matter of concepts or thoughts. It is the peace that passeth all understanding. But Brahman without attributes and Brahman with attributes, Sri Ramakrishna says, one and the same. Water still, water in waves, same water. We are experiencing Brahman in waves. And the physicist will tell you quite literally it's true. There is nothing here but vibration. Nothing. So this incredible machine that we inhabit translates that all into everything we experience. And no, it seems solid, it seems real. Why? Because it is Brahman's dream of activity. It has all the power of Brahman. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. I mean, you can challenge me all you like and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And it's good that you have the questions. But I believe Sri Ramakrishna is right when he tells us there is no other. There is Brahman still, Brahman acting, which is called Shakti or Kali, or Brahman with attributes. Anybody else? That was very good, Swayam.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Very honest. Okay, shall we call it an evening then? All right. The thing that we can just keep so firmly in mind is that these promises that Krishna makes, these representations that he makes, they have been tested over the millennia since he spoke them by literally millions of people and found to be true. This is why the Swamis bring this to us and say, here's this great prize. It's full of truth. It's like Krishna said at the very beginning of this evening's discussion, reading. Something that we have to struggle toward. And it's why I said in the preamble that the more you do, the more you intensify your practice, the more you deepen your practice, the more will be revealed. And the more is revealed, the more you become convinced of the truth of what is not yet revealed but told to you. All right, dears. Oh. Oh. Om Masato Ma Satgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Abir Moiti. O dearly beloved, lead us from thy lesser truth to thy highest truth. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. Om Hari Om Tat Sat. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. Go with Mother.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Good night, dears.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Night. Thank you, Brother Shankar.
Oh, well, thank you all.
Thank you, brother. Good night.
Good night, good night.